Nikola is a bad stock to short because of something that's called the golden rule. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks to our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy, please take time to like and subscribe. On our show, we've been doing a series of shows on Nikola and their attempts to sort of ride Tesla's coattails into profitability. So as part of this discussion, what we've found is that there are a number of times when we've had people say to us, you should short Nikola's stock because they'll be bankrupt in a certain time frame. And I would have to say that I don't think they're going to stick around as an operating company for very long. So I would agree with that. But I do believe that it's one of the worst stocks to short currently, and that's what I wanted to cover right now, and a few reasons of why that's the case. The first reason is banker creativity across the board for Mr. Milton and his bankers. So the fact that they chose Nikola as a name allows them to ride off the coattails of Tesla to imply that they're competent when it comes to dealing with electric vehicles. The second reason therefore we can sort of look at his marketing genius, his command of things like how the core logic as to why Tesla's successful, and trying to figure out ways to optimize some kind of an affiliation even though there is none. The second piece that I've noticed from him is that his bankers are more creative than we've seen from any bankers, but definitely more creative than the bankers that handle work for Tesla. And I say that because it's kind of hard to create $25 billion in market cap and not have to go through a roadshow as they did with the reverse public offering. And so I think that really showed some creativity and process. And the result was that they got public with very little scrutiny in the process. And so I think that's pretty creative. And it enables him to actually get out there and get access to capital that most companies typically don't when they're at his stage of development. The third reason why we think that shorting Tesla is a horrible idea is that there's a concept called the golden rule, which is he who has the gold makes all the rules. So given that Mr. Milton has such creative bankers, there's a phenomenon, I'll call it the AOL effect. If you'll remember, AOL actually bought Time Warner. And what they did was they had a very high market cap for a certain period of time. And they quickly went out and purchased assets using that market cap so that they could use those assets as a way to establish themselves as a fairly large corporation. It kind of worked out, kind of didn't work out. I mean, AOL flamed out a little bit, but because they had so many assets they purchased with that market cap, they now were legit. So one thought that came to mind regarding the golden rule is, given that the market cap of Ford and Nikola is similar, Nikola could actually go out there and purchase an asset like Ford Motor, or he could purchase a significant asset that allows him to pick up technology that he doesn't currently have. So the problem that would happen there is that if you're shorting and they use their creativity to acquire assets that give them legitimacy, that fairly, I want to say weak market cap they have because there aren't a lot of sales and revenue, et cetera, to go with it, could quickly change. And if you're shorting him in that position, you end up getting blown out. So if he was like no money and everything else wasn't working, or no market cap to work with and everything else wasn't working, that's fine. But when he has a whole bunch of gold in the coffer in the form of the ability to use his shares to acquire, um, you know, assets that would improve his operations, I just think it's an unwise move to even think about doing a put there, or even buying or shorting the stock in any long-term period, because until that market cap disappears or the gold disappears on his balance sheet, he's subject to purchasing something that allows him to tell a better story and potentially gain market share. The fourth reason why I think that it's a bad move is I actually got a chance to, I'm on the mailing list, which I encourage you to join, but we actually just saw a prototype of the electric version of the Nikola vehicle that seemed to be moving under its own power, as well as supposedly something called the braking test. And so I am, given everything else he's done and the quality of his marketing, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get a vehicle on the road, especially with the amount of capital they have to work with right now. And, as I saw it, what I kept thinking about was the big problem that every manufacturer has right now is that Tesla's the only entity that seems to have the battery technology to give range to regular cars, and they've scaled that battery advantage into trucks. So I believe that folks like Nikola can get an electric truck on the road. The challenge is the difference between Tesla and Nikola is the same problem that Daimler and others are having, which is the weight of the battery pack is so great that there's no freight weight left to actually haul, and therefore it just doesn't work efficiency-wise. So by him getting that prototype out there running properly, he can claim he's at the same spot as some of the biggest makes in the world, including Daimler, who is, as we've shared numerous times, a 40% market shareholder globally in trucks. So, so these are a few reasons and others why it's our feeling that, yes, Nikola may be, in my mind, a company that's not going to work long term, but they have enough on the table that suggests that they can stay in the game for a while, especially when they don't have competitors able to put out large numbers of vehicles in the niches within which they operate. So I have to admit that I'm a little surprised that I'm actually defending, but when people have been sending me all these notes that are saying Nikola's a fraud, you should short the stock, long term, it's one thing to be a fraud. It's another thing to have that much cash on your balance sheet that you can use to leverage into acquisitions and other activities. And, I guess on the list, and the list is a lot longer than we're covering today, is Nikola's lawsuit against Tesla regarding the look of the cabin of its truck being a copy of theirs, and actually getting some traction in the courts on this. As we shared, one of the techniques that's common for lawyers is to actually go in and try to find a minor win and leverage that win to access, to be able to do subpoenas and access far more information than regular people could get. And they can then now use that information as a way to try to close the gap between them and Tesla in that space. So there's a lot of creativity there. There's some good banking capabilities based on what I've seen them do. There is a lot of money on the balance sheet. So even though Nikola is not way down the road where you might expect them to be at this point after their many claims over time, I kind of feel like that's a vicious combination to try to short, because in theory it will go down. But the problem with that short is that Trevor Milton is unpredictable and he's a bright guy. So I think that these guys are going to do some kind of an acquisition, and instead of that valuation being based solely on the promises they've made, etc., he's going to be able to show some asset in the form of another company that they've purchased on the balance sheet that they can leverage into more market cap over time. And this is definitely something you can do if you have that gold, and that's why we call it the golden rule. So we look forward to your comments on this. I think, as soon as I heard that, short them, something just didn't sit well with me, and I think I understand now why, and this is why I decided to share this show with you today. At any rate, just a reminder, don't forget your 25 leg lifts, don't forget your 5-2 or another diet relative to your sort of brain function, and we look forward to your comments on this. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lehit Road, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Please take time to like, comment,